Hi, this is Gary with MacMost.com. Let me show you how you can reveal hidden media information columns like duration and dimensions in the Mac Finder. So if you take a look at this Finder window, you'll notice something a little different about it. It's in list view, and there's some columns here on the right, dimensions, duration, and title, that you normally don't see in list view. These are hidden columns in the Finder that you can reveal using a special technique. So first, let's take a look at how you customize columns in the Finder. First, you want to be in list view. Information columns like date, modified, size, and kind only appear in list view. You don't see them in icon view or column view. Now, you can customize these by using View and then Show View Options or Command J. And there's a list of columns here, and you can use the checkboxes to hide or show them. For instance, I can turn off the size column like that and turn it back on again. But there's a quicker way to do it. If you put the pointer somewhere here in the column headings, and instead of clicking, you Control click, you'll get this little pop-up menu that shows you all the columns that are available, and you could check or uncheck any one of them. So I could add, for instance, a date created like that, and I can Control click, right click, or two-finger click again, and remove date created like that. Now, when you go into a folder that actually has some files in it, like let's go into this Photos folder here, there are a whole bunch of different images, and it's useful to see this information like date, modified, size, and kind, and you may want to reveal some other columns as well. But what you won't see here are things specific to the fact that these are images. Things like dimensions. It would be useful to see the width and height of these images here in the Finder. You can do it for an individual file by selecting it and then using Command I for Get Info, and you'll see under More Info here the dimensions and lots of other information. You could also use View and then Show Preview, and then you'll get this preview here on the right, and that will also include information like dimensions and resolution here. But you won't see it for all of these items at once in a nice list like you will here, say, with the size of each file. And you won't be able to sort them using that information either. If you find these videos valuable, consider joining the more than 2,000 others that support MacMost through Patreon. You get exclusive content, course discounts, and more. You can read about it at macmost.com/Patreon. Now, something interesting happens if you go to your home folder. I'm going to use Go Home. You should see some standard folders in here, as well as others you may have created on your own. These standard folders should always include movies, music, and pictures. And these are special folders with special purposes. For instance, the Pictures folder contains your Photos library from the Photos app. The Music folder usually contains your library and media from the Music app, and the Movies folder is used by apps like iMovie. You can also use them for your own purposes. So for instance, in the Pictures folder here, I do have the Photos library, which is there by default, and also other apps might use this as well. But I also have a few other images and some folders with images that I put there myself. But the Pictures folder itself is not my own custom folder. That came with the Home folder. That was part of the Home folder when I created the account. It's a special folder, and it has a special ability. If I Control click, right click, or two-finger click in the column headings here to reveal the column options, I'll notice I get two more options here that weren't available in the other folders, the ones I created. They are dimensions and resolution. And if I turn one of these on, like dimensions here, I'll see that some of my image files actually show the dimensions here. So I know this one, for instance, is 3840 by 2160, and this one is 400 by 400. And this one doesn't seem to include that information as part of the metadata in that file. Now, the reason that these two columns are available here is because this is a special folder made for handling pictures. But getting these two columns as options doesn't rely on it being this Pictures folder. It will work with any folder named Pictures. And if I go back up here to the Home folder level, I say go into Movies, I'll see that for folders named Movies, not just this one, but any folder named Movies, I have duration, dimensions, title, and codecs. And then if I look in the Music folder, I'll see I've got a whole bunch of different columns I could add, simply because this folder is called Music. So that's the key thing here. These are not special columns just for these three special folders. You can get these for any folders with that name. So let's go back here to this custom photos folder that I created. If I go into it and I control click here, I don't get those extra columns. But if I change the name to pictures and then I go in and then I look, I do get those extra columns. So just renaming the folder does it. Let me add dimensions here. And now I'm going to get the dimensions for each of these photos. And now not only can I easily see all the photos by dimension, but I could sort. And it's going to sort, of course, using width. It can't sort both width and height. But I'll get the smallest width first. If I click again, it'll sort the other direction. So I can view the dimensions for all of these photos at once and sort by them, at least by the width. If I add resolution, it's going to put that here as well. And you can see there's one photo here that doesn't actually have a resolution set in the metadata, and the others do. And I could sort by this column as well. I can go click here on name to sort by name again. Now, you may think this is great, except that you have to name the folder pictures in order to get this. And that's true, except that you could change the name back and you keep these columns. So here I am with pictures, and I'm going to go back up a level. And now I'm going to change this back to its original name, the one I really want. And if I go into it, you'll notice that I keep these two columns here. I only needed to change the name of the folder temporarily in order to add the columns. Not only that, but it keeps them for good, as in I can turn them both off like that. And now if I go back into this folder later on, even though I've not changed the name back to pictures, I can still add those columns back in. It remembers at least that those should be options for this folder. Now let's look at this folder, audio files here. And you see that I only get the standard set of columns. But if I were to change the name to music and go in and then add the columns I want, like let's add duration here, and maybe let's add title here as well, then it's going to take this information from the metadata in these files, if it's available, and put them here. And then I can change this back or to anything I want, and it'll retain those columns I've added. I'll only see the columns I've added. I won't have the option to add the others unless I change the name back to music again. So now with a collection of audio files, I can sort by duration, which certainly could come in handy. And I could see the title that's inside the metadata, which could be really handy if this file was, say, named, song 1. I could actually see what the real name of the song in it was, at least if that was put in the metadata at the time that audio file was created. And then here's a folder called videos. If I go into that, you can see I only get the standard things. But if I change this to movies and go in, I can now add dimensions, duration, title, and codecs. So let's go and add duration for this and codecs as well here to have that information. And then I'll change the name back. Now here's something interesting about this. It works for subfolders too. So I've got this folder called More Photos, and in it are 3 subfolders, each with photos in them. And of course, it's named More Photos. I can't add those special columns. But if I were to change this to pictures like that, go in here, and then you can see at this level, I can add dimensions and resolution. But I don't want that for here. It doesn't do me any good just looking at these folders. But if I go into a folder, because there's a pictures folder in the path here, it's just one up from it, I now have the ability to add dimensions, even though this folder isn't called pictures. The one above it is. And then if I change this back, you'll see that it retains in this one folder where I added it, that dimensions column. Another thing you can do is you can mix them. So I've got this folder here that has a bunch of different types of files in it. Let's go and change its name to pictures. And now I'm going to go into it and I'm going to add the dimensions column. And notice that I not only get dimensions for images, but also for videos as well. But in addition, I could go in and change this to music and then go back in and I get all of the different music options here. So I can add title, for instance. I notice that this image here actually has some metadata that gives it a title. So I get that for the image, even though that wasn't an option for images. And I can go back up and I could change this to movies. And with movies here, I could add Codecs. So you can see now I've got dimensions from when I changed the name to pictures. I got title from when I changed the name to music. And I've got Codecs from when I changed the name to movies. And now I can simply change this back to the name I want, but I keep these columns and they all still appear here in the menu. And also, if you want to reuse a configuration, it will remember it even if you duplicate the folder. So I've got dimensions, duration, and title here in this examples folder. I'm going to select it and then duplicate the examples folder. Go in here. You see I've got these. I'm going to clear this out so it's empty and rename it, media folder template. I could store that somewhere else. And anytime I want to have a media folder with those columns, I could take this empty media folder template. I can duplicate it like that, name it something. And then notice I've got those columns in there. So now I can add files to this and those columns would already be there. Another tip is that it works with the way you can view subfolders in list view. So for instance, here in more photos, I changed the name to pictures, added the dimensions column, and then changed name back to more photos. But I didn't do anything to these subfolders here. So if I go, say, into photos 2, you could see I don't get that extra column. But I can always just reveal the contents of each of these. And I'll get the columns from the main folder in these subfolders when I simply view it this way. One last note is that sometimes the information in these columns doesn't populate when you first add the menu. Sometimes it's the next time you visit the folder that you'll actually see the information there. Other times when you actually move a file there, like I'll paste in 3 files, you could see I pasted in these 3 images here and it's not giving me any dimensions. But if I go up a level and then back down into the folder, you can see now the ones that actually did have dimension information now show them. So the synth feature in the Finder can be very useful if you use lots of media with your work. Note that while it seems like kind of a hack, this has been around for many, many years. So I don't think it's the kind of thing that we're ever going to see go away. I just hope that at some point Apple allows us some way to add these without having to do the trick of changing the folder name temporarily, and maybe even allows us to add more columns as well. Hope you found this useful. Thanks for watching.